Hello and welcome to the Engerati studio. I'm Rob Martin and I'm joined here by Caitlin Aburrow, the Director of Product Marketing and Strategy at Oracle. Caitlin, welcome.
Thank you very much, Rob.
So, I've read that you spent some time studying more digitally advanced industries than utilities, such as telecoms, healthcare and finance, to see how businesses in those sectors had evolved towards customer centricity. Tell me what you found.
Sure. Yeah. So around the world, really, we at Oracle, we have looked across industries, as you've said, but also across the utility industry to understand what is going on around us. I think we've been hearing for decades even that change is coming for the industry, that the utility industry is going to go through massive change. The fact is, though, the change is here, and it's not just change. We hear a lot, it's changing, the industry is changing. But to me, that's a little bit of an understatement. We are in disruption. This industry is going through a massive amount of disruption. The storm is all around us. We are in it. But disruption brings opportunity. And the reason that we look to other industries to try to learn from them is that we want to make sure there is as much opportunity as possible within the utility industry and our disruption. We want to make sure that as we work with our utility partners, they're not just surviving disruption, they're really thriving and even fueling that disruption. So we've looked around the world, we've looked at financial industry, as you've said, we've looked at telecoms quite a bit just because of the similarities in regulatory shifts and how impactful regulatory environments can be. One thing that we found was very interesting, this actually came from a McKinsey study, was that beginning in the 1990s and then through the most disruptive years for the telecoms industry, they saw about a 365% increase in mobile revenue pools. So, that came from a variety of places, but really what we saw in the end at about 2010 was that of that 365% growth, barely any of it was captured by the incumbent. New entrants captured the vast majority of that new revenue pool. And it's because they were ready to disrupt traditional models. When we look at industries like that, especially monopolistic industries, we see that disruption absolutely favors the new entrant. Particularly in telecoms, once that monopoly began to erode because regulatory bodies allowed third-party access to networks, the mobile technologies absolutely leapfrogged landlines, and the incumbent telecoms companies just weren't able to keep up. Change necessitates agility, and they just didn't have the agility to keep up. We see that time and again in all sorts of industries, and we want to take those lessons back to the utility industry and learn why did that favor new entrants.
So talking of those lessons, you've mentioned before that you see the keys to moving towards being more customer-centric as being engagement, automation and agility. Talk me through those three different aspects.
Absolutely. So what we have learned in those industries that have changed is agility is key, but in order to get to agility, we need that engagement and automation that you mentioned. So what we look at, is we look at primarily these dual models of transformation, of innovation for utilities and platforms that enable dual innovation. And what we mean by that is fortifying core business models while also exploring new business models. And what we see is engagement, automation, and agility are really the three things that are required to enable that dual innovation, to enable that balance between reliability of services and agility to explore new services. So when we look at engagement, this is key for retailers especially. Customer centricity has to be at the core of any market strategy. We look at engagement as, not just providing the right information, but providing the right information at the right time, through the right channel. And in order to do that, retailers especially need the context to do that. They need the data. They need the business process continuity. to be able to drive that deep relationship with their customer, to be able to engage extremely deeply on their terms, providing the services that they want. And often we've seen in those other industries that we've talked about, those incumbent technology platforms, they silo the data that's needed for that. They silo the context, they silo the business processes. We need technology platforms that remove those silos. When we come to automation, we think this is really important, not just again for those core business processes, but for the new business models as well. We need to drive automation, not just in like the happy path and self-service. We need to be automating front office, back office completely to mitigate fallout from challenges that are common in the utility industry. One really great example is Green Mountain Power in Vermont in the US. Their customers know what it's like to have a very harsh, bitter cold winter. They recognized that as a challenge, and they instituted then an automated program to enroll their customers in heat pump rental programs to provide a more efficient way to heat their homes, to mitigate the fallout from those higher bills that came unexpectedly that they just couldn't handle. They really used automation to bring a solution to a huge challenge for their customers. When we have taken on then engagement and automation, that frees up both our own internal resources, staff resources, but also system resources and technology resources to take on agility. And that's really what it comes down to, and what is one of the biggest pain points that we see in disruption in industries. We need the agility to take on change, to adapt to all the forces at play. And one thing that we're seeing around the world for utilities is, for them, agility means throwing out the rule book for technology purchases, throwing out the CIS rule book and saying, we're not going to do that. We're going to look at what is our customer-centric business model, and how do we build a technology platform to enable that, to enable a federated approach to customer service, to enable the context to provide deeper engagement, all of those things. They're saying, let's build the right platform to enable that agility, that modularity and flexibility.
I mean, you mentioned at the start that disruption is happening, and that implies things are happening at pace, but the reality is that it's a journey, isn't it? It's not something that happens at the flick of a switch.
Absolutely.
So talk to me about the Oracle approach to the digitalization journey.
Mm-hmm. So we look at it, we kind of take it all the way back to what is digitalization, and then look all the way through to, okay, what do you want to achieve in digitalization? Digitalization to us, the very beginning part of it is just having access to all this data. But once we've moved beyond that, we need to understand, okay, how do we use this data? What's the business outcome that we want from this data? So as a technology provider, we approach digitalization as basically putting in place the right platform to, as you said, nurture that journey, to not just start with getting access to the data, but then to being able to apply that data to business outcomes, to operationalize it, to provide more insight. So across IT systems, OT, and even looking at consumer technology, we approach technology platforms in a way that allows data from all of those sources to come together, to be used in context, to be used in those business outcomes, to provide a more continuous business flow, a more continuous end-to-end business process for utilities. So really, we've looked at it as kind of being a partner to our utility customers along their journey, and helping them, grow more and more mature in how they can use that data to drive better business outcomes.
Fantastic. And I think that data conversation is another one for probably later in this day or another. Caitlin, Aburrow, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for watching, and remember that more videos and interviews are available on the Engerati YouTube channel.